Hi everybody, this is Nick from Saberz.com, and today I've got something that a lot of you've been waiting for. The chassis for Project M. It's here, it's awesome, and I'm going to tell you all about it. I'm also going to tell you about these little parts over here, which are variations on the rivet greebly, and they are going to be really important for electronics installations. And finally, we're going to go over the emitter assembly so you can better understand how to access the hidden set screw and install a blade or blade plug. And I apologize for my voice. I've been losing it recently, so try to bear with me. Okay, first up is the chassis. This is a great piece of engineering done by a friend of Saberz.com named Louis Luciano. Project M is completely hollow all the way through, and therefore is a total plug-and-play setup. The completed electronics package slides in and then gets secured in place by the rivet. This might get a little bit confusing because there are 5 different versions of these rivets. Version number 1, prop-accurate thread-in rivets. These come pre-installed on the Saber. The head of the rivet is hemispherical, meaning that it has to be screwed in by hand. So you just screw it in by hand and it's just going to sit there. Number 2, prop-accurate Delrin 5mm kill key rivets. We originally developed these thinking we'd use the standard 5.5mm recharge port, but we ended up using a different size recharge port, so these ones aren't used. You can set them aside, you can throw them away if you like, they're completely unused. Sorry for the confusion. Number 3, prop-accurate Delrin 3mm kill key rivet. This is what we're actually going to use with the chassis as our kill key. Once your electronics are installed, it will replace that emitter side rivet and act as your kill key. Okay, so these first 3, you might have noticed I kept saying prop accurate. That's because of that hemispherical head. The last 2 versions of the rivet are identical except that hemispherical head is replaced by a 2.5mm hex wrench head. That lets you torque them down into the Saber to make sure you have a nice secure fit. But be careful because these 2 rivets are aluminum, meaning that if you apply too much torque, you can strip the head and make the rivet unusable. We also recommend lubricating both the rivet and the female threads on the Saber with either WD-40 or something thicker like Park Tool Polylube 1000. We like either of those lubricants. They both work really well and they help make sure you don't have to over-torque anything. So let's get to the rivets themselves. Number 4 is our short hex rivet, and it's used in place of the kill key. So this rivet is just like the original pre-installed rivet, but with a hex head, so that you can screw it down to ensure that if you're swinging your Saber around, that it doesn't come out of its threaded hole. Easy enough. And finally, number 5, the long hex rivet. This is maybe the most important from a functional standpoint. And this one is going to be installed on the coupler side rivet location, and its purpose is chassis retention. It's going to make sure that your chassis doesn't move fore aft, that your chassis doesn't rotate, and again, it only needs to seat in place. After that, higher torque will not do anything to improve chassis retention. It'll just increase your chances of stripping the rivet. Okay, I hope that wasn't too confusing. Let's get to the chassis itself. Here's a look at an empty chassis with nothing installed. On the underside, you can see the cavities for the NeoPixel connector, the Profi board, the battery holder, and the speaker. On the flip side, you can see this rail for switch clearance, and these 2 cavities for the tact switches themselves. And on the side, you can see 2 holes for the rivets. One, again, is going to be for the recharge port, and the other is for chassis retention. Now, over here, we have a completed installation. To put it in the Saber, first we're going to remove the emitter, the rivets, and the emitter side buttons, which are the activation switches. Then the whole installation just slides right into place. Make sure the tact switches are centered beneath each threaded switch hole, and once in place, we use the long hex rivet on the coupler side rivet hole to lock the chassis in place. Put the 3mm kill key rivet into the recharge port, replace the emitter and the buttons, and we are ready to test the Saber. So the way to test the Saber, of course, number 1, remove the kill key. You should hear a boot sound. And then number 2, you can start using the switches to test whether the installation is functional. If your spring-loaded switches aren't working, you can remove the whole switch assembly and loosen the M3 screws on the underside of each switch assembly. Start by loosening a half turn, reinstall the switch, and retest. We should also talk about sound. Project M's coupler allows its 2 halves to be either joined completely or continuously separated any amount up to 18.5 millimeters.
Just a quick loosening of the 4 center thumb screws unlocks the coupler mechanism, and a quick tightening locks it back into place. The good news is that only a tiny gap is needed to produce significant sound volume. Volume does increase with the coupler all the way open, but not by a huge amount.
Okay, finally, let's get to the emitter and put a blade in place. Project M features a hidden set screw. To access that set screw, we need to unscrew the end piece of the emitter, the stainless steel lock ring. Once you remove that lock ring, you can access the set screw and loosen it with a 1.5mm hex wrench. Now the emitter insert is free to come out. If that outer lock ring doesn't want to come off, we can disassemble the emitter completely in order to move it more easily off the lock ring. To do that, grasp the entire washer stack and the lock ring together with one hand and unscrew this entire subassembly out of the emitter body and fins. Once this subassembly is out, slide the washer stack off and you'll be left with just the lock ring and the inner emitter tube. Then you can grasp the emitter tube in one hand, the lock ring in the other hand, and unscrew. Now, with both of these parts disassembled, you'll want to lubricate each one. Again, we recommend either WD-40 or Park Tool Polylube 1000. Now, to reassemble, we're just going to do the steps in reverse order. Slide the washer stack back onto the emitter tube, thread that whole subassembly into the emitter body with the fins in place, insert your blade, tighten the set screw with a 1.5mm hex wrench, and then finally seal everything up with the lock ring. Thank you so much for watching. We are super excited to finally have a fully accurate Darth Maul lightsaber with a complete electronics package inside. This is a project I've been working on for over 20 years, and I am just delighted to have it come to fruition in this way. Thank you so much for everyone who has supported this project and everyone who has purchased a Project M saber. We are just about to launch Project O1, which is the Obi-Wan TPM saber, and Project Q, the Qui-Gon TPM saber, and they are equally detailed and accurate, and I cannot wait to show you those sabers as well. For up-to-date news, follow our Facebook page and follow the main website at Saberz.com. Thank you so much.